Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We talk about this as the real graveyard slot. Just after lunch, last day of the conference, just before we're about to break. I'm tempted to have you all stand up and do some calisthenics to sort of work out, but I think I might have had a bit too much dessert myself to actually lead you in that. So I think we'll skip that. But thank you all for remaining with us. Thank you so much again for your participation over the last 2 or 3 days. It's been a fantastic conference from my point of view, starting with our awards on Tuesday, going through all the sessions yesterday and today, including a lot of breakout workshops, as you've noted and participated in. It's great to get everybody talking, sharing ideas, a lot to follow up with now, so that we keep on building off this momentum. So we're looking forward to continuing the discussions well beyond, I was about to say the 4 walls, but actually the curtains of this room would be more appropriate. We'll be beyond the curtain over the next months as well. So this is our last session. And what we thought we'd do in our last session is kind of reflect a little bit on what we started with, the awards ceremony on Tuesday night. So we have a couple of our winners. I would actually have loved to have gotten all 14 winners, or 17 if you can count highly commended. In fact, there were so many good submissions across. I mean, there was probably no less than 70 people we could have had. We'd love to go in more detail with. And again, there is a little bit more detail on our website about all the finalists. So do take a little bit of time to read them. And if there's a company or a project you want even more information about, get in touch, because we can help facilitate that, because there were so many interesting projects. I'll back up a minute, actually. The reason that we launched these awards wasn't just a reason to throw a party, although we don't usually need much of an excuse to do that. We genuinely thought it was a need to recognize the changes, the successes, the innovations that are happening across automotive logistics. And although there are a number of awards of various kinds, whether they're general logistics awards or whether they're OEM supplier awards, we just didn't think that if you drill down into the supply chain and look at each segment, like whether it's packaging or whether it's aftermarket or whether it's performance and finished vehicle, we just didn't think that there's quite enough appreciation and focus on all the work that's being done there. And it's not just about some visionary future, as we've described, where it's all completely automated and algorithms running everything and autonomous vehicles and trucks. It is about what's happening today, and sometimes seemingly small successes that make quite a significant improvement to operations, to performance, to cost, and ultimately to end customers. And as the customer requirements change, customer expectations change, the supply chain has to move and change with it. And so it was an effort. We wanted to recognize the companies that we feel are taking a lead in this. So what we did, we recruited, I think in the end it was 23 judges, and again, I won't name them all here, but they're heads of departments at major car makers, tier suppliers, some academics, some associations, kind of representing a range of expertise and focus across the supply chain. And we obviously, they judged them completely independently. We did a lot of work to try to come up with a matrix where there was no conflict of interest, as much as we can handle. So obviously, if I could see that a judge might work very carefully or closely with a company. So, for example, Peugeot, we avoided having Francesca Camboni from Peugeot judging GEFCO in certain categories. Obviously, that would have been a conflict of interest. So we separated. We did our best to make that independent. Obviously, coordinated with the judges as well to make sure that they also would tell us if there was a certain conflict of interest, because we wanted these to be independent. We wanted them to stand up and be really something that the winners can take home with pride, because it would be easy to do it another way, but that was not at all how we wanted to do it. So we were really fortunate that we had the judging panel agree to participate. And again, you could read about all of our judges online. Some of them were even from outside the industry. For example, we had Simon Charker, who once upon a time was a logistics at Honda, but is now actually working on the EV supply chain for Dyson, for their upcoming launch, or not so upcoming, but let's say the project phase for the electric vehicle. So although automotive experience, currently in a totally different industry, and so an opportunity to take knowledge from both sides and judge from that. So that's how we try to create the mix. I think we had, I don't have the exact count, but there was well north of 100 companies that applied for the awards. Shortlisted it down to about 50 companies, and then we had our winners. So that was the process. We will continue this. We'll have another iteration of it. Certainly next year, we'll look to make those entries open as soon as possible to give companies even more time than last year. Sometimes it takes time to get certain approvals, to pull data together, because it was, I know submitting awards isn't it's a fairly rigorous process to do it right, to pull together all the information. So what we wanted to do, we have two of our winners who will join us on the stage this afternoon, and we'll talk through the projects a bit, talk through some of the detail in implementing these programs, in the challenges and in the support needed to gain, because of course any kind of innovation, whether it's an IT or a new service, requires investment, it requires buy-in from management, it requires collaboration across suppliers, providers, so it doesn't just happen overnight. And we'll talk a little bit about what the continuation of some of those projects could be. So it'll just give you a little flavor of what an award-winning category looked like. And again, this is not to say that there were companies that didn't win who didn't have fantastic projects. There were many, but this is at least a good snapshot for you. So our first speaker, and we'll also we'll sit down and do some Q&A, give you a chance to ask some questions as well. I'd like to invite Kai Rabe, Aftersales Manager for Europe from Opel, who won together with 4Flow. And Kai, why don't you come and tell us a little bit more about the project, and then we'll do some Q&A. Thank you, Kai, and congratulations again.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you that you all have this long breath after a couple of days nice conference to still keep till the last session. And thanks to Louis, Chris, Alistair, Nimish, and the whole team for being able to present a little bit what we have done in the past years, and also obviously that we have been awarded. It's a great honor. But it's not me who has that honor. It's the team. So maybe I preempt already one of the questions from Chris. What do you need to do to become a winner? I think you need a good idea. You need some persistence, but you also need a good team or a good partner to execute. And unfortunately, our partner 4Flow is not here. But you will see what they have done and how we have approached it. So the project I would like to introduce here is the transportation management system which we have got, and we applied for the Better Visibility Award. If you listen to many of the speeches, transparency, visibility is one of the key elements to getting our physical processes digitized into the IT world. Make it visible, make it touchable, convert it into data. I think we are not the leading edge, but we are the base for the future development which will come and the future use which the new technologies will bring to us. So if you don't do that first step, if you don't have that first step, you may be excluded from further developments. And I would like to go back a little bit in history and if we can have the next slide, show to you where our starting point was. So and I've pulled out, there's only a couple of slides, but I pulled out the chain starting from materials management on the one end, sending a schedule to a supplier, the supplier contacting the carrier maybe run it via carrier hubs, maybe into a prepacker or directly into our source warehouses, then into distribution warehouses or PDCs, and then from there to the final dealer. And that's what I would consider the after-sales logistics or after-sales transportation chain a little bit. And when Marcel and myself started in 2008, what we found is, or 2009, what we found is it was a very fragmented way of doing business. So, of course, there was a defined process. And Within the car industry, we love to have processes which drive the results. Yeah? And if you define the process, each and everybody knows what he has to do first and what he has to hand over to the next guy. So the interfaces before and after you are probably well known and are pretty defined. But to really get an overview, yeah, across the whole chain, that is not so much defined. Or you have to swap systems. So if we follow that chain, materials management sends out schedule, that's common, yeah. But it's their system, it's their planning system that sends out schedule to the supplier. How the supplier computes the schedule, we don't know. We tell the supplier, if you've got shipments, please contact that carrier. So the supplier contacted the carrier, which we have told him. We didn't know if he did or not, because we are not in the loop. Yeah, we give the supplier the freedom to say, on Tuesday, I've got the shipment for Opel ready, please come and pick up. Yeah? And we were not aware that it's happening, and we didn't want to be aware because the process drives itself, yeah? And we try not to interfere and only try to tackle exceptions. And I could go on and on, but that was the chain which we found, and that fragmentation, yeah, did not allow us to control it. And I made some notes from the sessions this morning. I just need to be able to find it. And I love that theme that if you can't see, you can't manage, and if you can't manage, you can't drive the results. And I think that was the leading vision which we had to say we need to be able to see. And what we did is, yeah, if you look at that, there was less transparency, I said. We also had high number of overshipments, because if we only send the supplier the schedule, he should deliver 100. He thinks if I switch on the machine, I can produce 200. They will order next month again, so I ship the 200 already. But financially, that's a different story. Inventory-wise, it's a different story. But we would only see that once the shipment would arrive at our dock. We could then have an argument with the suppliers, yeah, which sometimes helps, but at the end of the day, it's much more work, yeah, to do so. So the whole control, it worked, and I'm not saying we had a bad start, yeah, but it worked, but we were not able to manage that one, yeah. So, and if you go to the next slide, you will see the same thing. Yeah? So the bottom line part is the same, but what we try to do is we try to put an integrated transportation management system on top. Yeah, we call it Transport Control Center. How to do that? Yeah, we were a little team, we were less than a handful of people. Yeah? How do you do that? We went to our own IT, and they said, no, can't do it. You can write up the specs and you can put it through budget processes and come back in 3 years' time, and you may get half of it for the double price which we have originally estimated. Yeah? If this sounds familiar to some of you, but that is reality if you try to work in a company where not the core business is about IT. So I went back to my boss and said, but we need people. And he says, you can't have people. Yeah, so I said, okay, I can't have IT, I can't have people. So the only thing which was open to me is go out to the market and find somebody who could provide already a system off the shelf, which does most of what we want to do, and also provide us the arms and the legs, yeah, to execute that whole thing. So, and 2010 we went to the market, and in 2011 we have awarded 4Flow to start with us on the journey. And that journey really consists of a vision. We want more transparency. Yeah? We had a couple of pillars. We wrote a 3 years plan, yeah, what we want to do. Yeah? And then we got started. And I want to use another word from the session this morning, which was adaptive. You can imagine that the 3 years plan, which we wrote down at the beginning in 2011, yeah, it was not really the plan which we have executed the next 3 years. Yeah? So key to the success is also to have a partner who is adaptive enough, yeah, for you to follow the necessity of change and put some more effort in this area or that area. Yeah? And so we went through that, and we were also not allowed really to touch our legacy system, because all the things which I said, the materials management system still stayed as they are, and we need to keep the communication. The delivery note is still the leading document. You can't change it because this is the finance process and it has to be like that. Or the warehouse needs the information in this and this format. You can't touch it. So in a way, we were forced to double the effort. So we could not say we take the company as a whole and implement something from scratch and change all the departments. The only way we had is that we say, okay, right, we know the information is out there, we know it's going to work, The only thing we need to do is we need to bring it to one platform. So we left the processes as they are. And in principle, those arrows going up and down was that wherever there was information created, we tried to get a copy, yeah, and put it into an integrated system. And then once you have it in the integrated system, you can then start working with it. And the first thing which we did is we broke the link between the suppliers and the carriers. And by breaking, I don't mean that I don't want the suppliers to talk to the carrier, but we broke the link that we need to be involved in that one. So instead of the supplier calling the carrier when things to be picked up, yeah, the supplier now needs to tell the system that he has got material to pick up, and the system knows which carrier it is, and the system communicates to the carrier and the supplier, yeah, and we have got the same information, we have got the same task, with one difference: we know that it's going to happen. And we have got a chance to interfere. We have got a chance to select a different carrier. We have a chance to say, hold back. We had suppliers delivering 2 or 3 boxes, 2 or 3 pallets each and every day, each and every week. So we in Aftersales are not that constrained like in the production environment. So we have the chance to say we only pick up once a week. So instead of having 5 transports of 2 pallets each and every day, we now have 10 pallets once a week. But it needs communication. It needs communication with the suppliers and also with the carriers. Overshipments are gone, because the supplier can only announce the amount which we have scheduled. We don't take the 200 if we have only 100 outstanding. So also that one was easily avoided, yeah, by doing that. And this is just a little example, and we did this across the chain, and we are still not finished in all areas, yeah, but we started with getting a copy, putting it on a platform, and now you have got it visible. And here I talk to experts, but I would say usually our sales guys and after sales are not experts in logistics, but I think if you make things transparent, even the sales guys would be able to make better decisions, yeah, than we have done it, but just let the process do it, and individuals across the chain with different interests, yeah, making the decisions on the way. So by doing that, yeah, we have involved the partners. Yeah, and that was the key issue. It took a long time. It took a lot of communication, a lot of convincing. Yeah. We have also started with the full transports. We have now enhanced it with the empty flows. And we can now measure everything. We have got all of our transports in there. If I say all, I'm lying. But we are above 90%, yeah, 100% in inter-warehouse. We have some loopholes in the inbound flow. We are maybe at 85 there. And on the outbound side, we also have maybe the one in odd country which is not participating. But the majority of our flow is inside the system. And first of all, it was there to see. Secondly was, where can we improve? Through a new RFQ, or through a new method, or through using new devices, or like I said, changing the pickup frequency. Yeah? And then after we had this, we put the add-ons in, and then we created, and that was also part of the success, as soon as you ask the different departments to give you information, you also need to give them something back. So when we started, we installed a dock management system, because the warehouse had the problem that the carriers turned up, yeah, they had a slot, but they never turned up in the right time, yeah. And if they turned up, they're turning up late or too early, and they wanted to be served, and there was big discussions. So we installed a dock management system, which helped the warehouses to a little bit streamline their operation, yeah, and avoided administration. Therefore, we got their buy-in. If they need to do some extra work for us or give us some more information, they were willing to do so. So it was a give and take along that chain as well. And after we had the baseline, we took it to the next level. So we now could think about freight management. So when we have all the transportation in, yeah, we can also price it. We can also measure it. We can also even may go to the step of freight audit, which in our world, we haven't done that step yet. Because if I cut the contracts from a central perspective, I cut the contracts on behalf of the receiving country. They are responsible for the audit. They are responsible for the cost. So it needs to be handled in country. But what we can give them on hand is a pre-checked invoice, or we can say, if you find this amount and that number of kilograms and that number of transport, then that's what we have got in our system as well. And if the carrier sends you that information, you should be fine and just sign it off, and it's another support for them. Yeah. So freight audit is helping us. And of course, transport analytics. We sit then on the data, and then now we go into that step, how do we get it out into the organization? So we are providing at no cost, daily reports using that data, computing it. So my warehouse manager in Bochum knows exactly on the next day how full the trucks were he sent out yesterday. Not by visually looking at it, but looking at a system report. And we always have odd parts, so you always find the single locations where pictures look ugly, but you don't know if this is a single picture in the whole month or if this is happening each and every day. So by being able to have all that in a system, you can run daily reports, but you can also see monthly trends, yearly trends, and you get away from the single instances, and you really get to the numbers that we say, well, we looked at the last 2,000 transports, and that was the average. So don't talk about single cases anymore. So that's about it to get started. I mean, this was a long journey. I'm sure that Chris will chase me with a couple of questions. But I thought giving you these two pictures is after lunch and at the end of the conference a bit easier than me just trying to explain it verbally what we have done and where we have done. And I focused a little bit on the inbound side. Similar things happened in the inter-warehouse, which we call it, or on the outbound side to the dealers. But I think in the interest of time, I only try to focus on one highlight, but still try to explain the idea which we had there. And I'm open for questions, Chris.
Please. So come join us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you again, Kai, and again, congratulations to you. I'll come closer to you, then we can...
Yeah, I thought I could get away from you, but...
Yeah, well, you can't. I'm afraid I'm chasing you around. We might circle around the room by the time this is over. Why don't we start talking a little bit about... I mean, you mentioned the sort of challenges that brought the project, led it to arise in terms of no IT and no people, which goes against a little bit some of the trends of this conference, right? When we're talking about digitalization and excellence. You found a way to get around that or to go forward. What would you say were some of the challenges that followed in the ramp up and implementation once you found the partner in ForFlow and move forward, whether those are internal challenges continuing within Opel or externally with providers? What are some of the challenges you would point to?
Yeah, thanks for that. Again, I need to refer back to the session which we had this morning, when we talked about startup mentality, startup thinking. I mean, again, we are 8 years behind. So we started that journey in 2010. So some of the developments were not even known yet, and the trends were not there yet. But I heard it as well. In a big company like ours, and in a traditional company, ROI is important. So you need to fund the investment. And like I said, and you have constraints. And I was open and honest at that point and said we didn't get any heads, and our IT department didn't want it. So, but I think the key of success for us was that I had a boss at that point in time who also had a little bit of a transportation background, and he saw that intransparency is really costing us money, and he was brave enough, to together with the finance guy and his boss to say, okay, right, I give you a little of startup money, if I take the word from the colleagues from Telecom this morning, and it was not a little money, it was a bigger amount of money, but he allowed us to give us some play money and say, well, I'm convinced from the idea, but please make it work. And also with ForFlow, we found a partner who was also willing to invest, because it was not like in a normal IT world that you have a defined scope. I need this field, 2 screens, and they need to do that. We knew that we are intransparent. We knew that we can get copies from many of them. We didn't know how difficult it is, even in our own organization, just to get a copy regularly. But we knew roughly where we wanted to go. But together with a partner who is also very flexible, that was the starting point and success. So we had some play money, but I also had the challenge that we had to show an ROI very, very quickly. So we knew that we have investment, that there are low-hanging fruits. You do that, you look at it, and you find things where you can make a couple of 100,000 easily, because you see it and you tackle it on the way. But you also know that you have to invest, and that the 80% is fine, but to get also to the 20%, that's costing you a little bit more. So we always had to find the balance of investing and keeping the project expanding and up and running, but also having showcases and finding the money on the way. And I think we were lucky that we found money quite quickly in the beginning, and there's nobody from Opel, other my colleagues who are responsible for it as well. At the beginning, we also funded it because we were launching RFQs. With the support of 4Flow, we could evaluate different structures much easier than we would have traditionally done it. And we had quite successful tenders where we changed the way we did the distribution or we did the rate structure, which gave us, let's say, a couple of million in the beginning. Which helped us to, it wasn't all about the project, but it was the new team trying to work on the transparency, provided that profit or that better cost base, and that helped us to get continuous support. So that helped us in the beginning, and then let's say we went from 70% development and 30% looking for savings down, and we are still not finished yet. So we still have the chain we have got, but there are still some blind spots. We work in a network, which is the production logistics network, which we do not fully control. It's actually operated, and Kamil will come up. It's operated by GEFCO 4PL. So they cut the contracts for us. We use the contracts. But let's say the day-to-day operation, the interlink with the suppliers and the carriers on a day-to-day side, it's done by us.
Right.
So also there we needed some adoption and some flexibility, but it worked out for us pretty well. So that we, after 3 years, were very successful. We sacrificed something, which I do not want to talk in detail, also my 2 colleagues are there. We sacrificed container management, which was on the original 3 years plan. And we focused more on inbound because we have seen on inbound side, from the supplier side, more effort. And you need a partner. If you have an IT company in former times, they would have said, you have said in the scope is CMS, and we will provide you CMS. You can't change now. So, but with our partner, we were flexible enough to adapt to that change. And every time we need to renew the contract, and we need to do that every 4 years. We need to justify the spend. So and meanwhile, that system is giving us a kind of a base saving, compared to what we had before. We have an execution team who deals regularly with the suppliers and with the carriers, do balancing, combining loads, and doing the right things. If we would not have that, the savings would immediately go away. That is recognized by the organization. Okay. And even more so, and that's the last sentence to it, so you can ask some more questions, is that we are now able to go out in our own organization. So probably again, if you go back, transport was not a function as such. Transport is a necessity, and it's a service which needs to happen. The materials management, the purchasing guys are the brain because they know which supplier to select. The materials management guys are the brains because they know exactly how many parts they need at what point in time. The warehousing guys, they are the brains because they operate and they know exactly what's needed. And transportation, it just needs to happen in between. And from that thinking, also from the value proposition inside the company, to come with a transportation management idea, where I think that, call it logistics or call it transportation, is the vertical functions being the connector to everything. We are the best ones to integrate all of those parties because we have to deal with all of them. And at the beginning it was like, what does Kai want? He wants to interfere in my business. And meanwhile, our colleagues are coming and says, well, I've got this problem. This supplier is going to give us trouble. What can you do? The warehouse says, I need to close my inbound for 2 days. Can you hold back? Can you control it better? So we are giving something back. And the add-on value, which is difficult to quantify, I still need to provide the ROI. But the add-on value, which we do by giving that transparency back to the rest of the organization, is invaluable, I would say, and drives a lot of performance which are not even in my budget, which I don't see.
So, thank you very much. So ROI, okay, we can't talk figures, but can you give us a sense of how quick that ROI needed to be, and did you exceed that? Was there a give and take on that?
So, I would say in the first year we didn't achieve the ROI. In the second year we achieved already that the costs were equal to the savings which we have found. And since then, we have never spent more for the service than what we were able to provide as a service. Yeah, it's sometimes difficult to explain what you're going to do. Yeah, in the long run. Yeah, are you only measuring year on year? I think if I only measure year on year, it is still borderline. But there are certain things inside the execution. Yeah, if you stop it, the savings will immediately drop back. Yeah, or if you don't have a dock management system anymore, then the chaos will break out. Yeah, on the warehousing side. If you look at it from a total perspective, yeah, when I compare the budget which I had in the beginning and I look at the spend, if I make it volume neutral and diesel and whatever neutral, yeah, then we are looking about more than 10% savings.
Annual
savings.
Okay,
yeah.
Impressive. So we do have mics going around, so feel free at any point if you want to jump in. We'll also have Kai stay on stage for when our next speaker comes up, so we'll have some more Q&A then. But obviously, any questions from the audience specifically about this project, please jump in at any time. It's always interesting to hear the internal workings of a company and not least the IT struggles there. And I'm not saying this to bash, Opel's IT, because I think I'm sure there's lots of car makers, manufacturers who recognize exactly what you said. But have you gone back to IT and sort of shown them what you've done? I mean, obviously they must know about it for some of the other integration with the legacy systems. Have they is there opportunities to learn, to adapt internally? Obviously appreciate Opel's not going to become an IT company. That's part of the advantage of working with an expert. But, any potential for changes and improvements internally there as well?
Well, again, to be open and honest, IT revisited it, and once we had it up and running, and that's a bit also a selling point that I said I do not interfere, and that's how I sold it in the beginning, or how we sold it in the beginning, that we do not interfere with the existing processes. Right. Yeah, I said the materials management sending out the schedules, the delivery notes are still done within finance, and we are just putting an add-on in. Well, I explained to you that I broke the link between supplier and carrier. That little bit was wrong what I said or how I sold it to them, because now we are inside the operation. Right. And as soon as we entered the operation, then also IT came on board and said, well, what about sustainability? Yeah? What are you doing if the systems are down? Yeah? So we had the IT colleagues looking into it. They still didn't want to run it. They still didn't have a kind of TMS. It's not their area of expertise. Right. But what we had their support on was then, if we talk about security, checking that the website is secure, that the systems are sustainable. So there we got their help. Yeah. And if I take it one step further, the previous owner of Opel was General Motors, and General Motors 3 years ago launched a huge program called GLIDE, yes. Global Logistics Integrated Design and Execution Tool. Yeah, that's what GLIDE was standing for. Yeah, and a lot of things they have thought in America for the whole globe, and they wanted to do on a far bigger scale, including the IT. Yeah, we learned as soon as they came down with the requirements. Yeah, that. Okay, I'm not saying that we had it all, yeah, but at least a lot of things which they had to think about and build on, we had already created, and so we could participate. So I still think that a company can do it, but in GM it only worked because the global logistics guy had this vision, and he wanted that. He wanted it across the globe, and the investment was obviously nowhere near this little bit of salami tactic what we did. Yeah, we're going to start and then we fund it. Yeah, so this was okay. We know that we're going to go in there. We invest a high double-digit million number, if this is even sufficient, into a system which will bring us benefit. So it is possible, and then the IT guys jumped on it as well. But the execution, is again, it's about definition. Have you laid everything out? This flexibility, this adaptiveness, is more difficult if you work then in that environment as if you work in a smaller environment like Aftersales.
You mentioned sacrificing CMS, container management. First of all, why did that fall out in the process? And has it come back? Is there still a chance that it will come back?
Yeah. So I don't want to spoil the story for Ralf and Ravi. Yeah. Why did it fall out? I mean, usually you focus on where your money is. Yeah. My majority of the spend is in outbound to the dealer. Yeah. The influence you can have, even if you have the transparency on the outbound deliveries, which start at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night from a warehouse and need to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning with the customer, is not great. Yeah, so you can design the rates, you can design the setup, but then the machine needs to run, you can't interfere. So that's what our pure intention was, look where the money is and see if you can do something there. We did it with RFQs, but then soon detected that the effort we wanted to put in there would not give us more payback. Yeah. So then we went into inter-warehouse and then we went into inbound, yeah, and we saw that this is a bigger area. Inbound, we thought we're not going to touch because we never convinced production logistics of changes and so on and so on. But we had a chance to do so, and that's why we changed it. And again, we have an ROI and we had limited resources. Yeah, so we said, okay, container management system is something when you know and you have got your flow set up, then it should be relatively easy to also make the containers itself visible in it. So that's why we decided to put it in as a later stage. And then it happened that my colleague, who are responsible for packaging and for container management, also said, hey, we need to have something. Yeah. So they went out for a benchmark, looked at other options, other suppliers helping them out, or hooking it on to the TMS. But I don't want to spoil the story because, like you said, you want to convince us that if you once get an award, that you apply for it again. So maybe next year they have got a chance to demonstrate what they have done with the container management system and a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So maybe next year, if we have another winners interview, a chance. But hopefully there's a few other companies out there who will be encouraged to get in the mix and battle it out for that one. Also, you mentioned having almost every carrier on board or supplier, but some obviously aren't yet. Is there specific reasons, or is it still in process, or what structural reasons why these companies can't be onboarded?
Yeah. So the honest answer is that we struggle internally.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can convince a carrier or make him convinced or something like that. Yeah. If I have got a contract with him, if I go to my own production, I need to convince my own production to do certain things which I get every supplier to do. It sometimes does not work.
Right.
Yeah. So and if I take my own production, or if you take a global supply base, which we have got, then we talk about GM facilities across the world, which we want to hook onto the TMS. So we needed to give it a priority. So and what's still missing as blind spots are some of those, I would say, allied suppliers.
Right.
Yeah. On the outbound side, I mentioned that there are some blind spots because some countries are not able, out of their warehouse management system, to deliver us the shipping records in a way that we can convert it and put it into our system. Yeah. But again, I mean, if the warehouse provider says I just can't, or it just doesn't suit that TMS, I cannot change the warehouse provider. So there are limits to that one. And last but not least is we laid out the whole chain, and we still have some blind spots. Again, operating in a network which is designed to suit the production needs, where production still has the view that they have a plan. That's the big difference between after-sales and production. They have a plan that the insignia in red needs to be built at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. So you need to have the parts ready at a certain point in time. And then they have it easy, they can work backwards when they have to order at the supplier. Yeah? And that plan exists, and it comes out of the system. And every supplier knows if they don't deliver, they are in trouble. Yeah? And execution is key, and that plan stands, and you only need to look at exceptions. For after sales, as we do not have a plan, as we give the supplier the freedom of the week to deliver, and some things are not that critical, we needed to take a different approach in that one, So and that's what we have been doing,
Obviously, there's new owners now. General Motors is not in the picture. PSA. So I appreciate that there's a lot of work currently being done and things that I'm sure are being decided, haven't been decided. But does this Does this stand for in the new era? Does it? I mean, obviously it does today. Do you see it something that could be adapted, spreading into wider PSA, staying within the Opel side, or is there yet been discussion or evolution on how that will go?
Yeah, I would love to know the answer on that, yeah, because it really affects us. Yeah, I mean, I talked to Kamil about it already. Currently, we're working in different systems. Yes. Also, the production system is a different one than what Opel is using, yeah, and the way they approach it. We mentioned it around the table. The distribution system, PSA Group is more working via big wholesalers now, and not to the end customers. We still are, yeah. But of course, I think in a big company, we need to find out what's the best solution, or learn from each other, But that is in process, Obviously, we are trying to leverage the resources and the assets as good as we can, and I'm sure that we will merge in a certain extent. But I can't tell you if the TMS in the aftersales will be also implemented in PCD, or if portion of what we have developed will cease. Maybe outbound will cease because we don't need to go to 5,000 dealers. We go to logistics centers, Right. But what I see is there is an asset for the inter-warehouse portion, Even if you treat big wholesalers as inter-warehouse, because you have full truckloads going to them, you need to measure how good the trucks are utilized. So that could go in there. And on the inbound side, I'm not sure. I think there the first question I would need to ask to Andreas Graffe, who was on the panel yesterday, how quickly PSA and Opel will merge with their production material inbound, and that will also drive us then to either step totally out and create it on our own, or stick with the production. So. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer yet, so I would love to.
Well, unfortunately for you, I'll be around to ask the questions along the way. So we'll keep following up on that. I want to thank you, Kai. I'm going to ask you to stay, just because as we speak to our next speaker and there's questions that come up, perhaps there's more interaction to have there. Before we move on to the next speaker, though, but again, are there any specific questions follow on at this time for Kai from you guys? Okay. Again, we might have more later. I'll also make sure that although we couldn't have her judge it, we'll make sure that Francesca has a good look at this as well, right? So she's aware as some of these decisions are being made about some of the strengths. But I wanted to congratulate Opel and ForFlow again, and thank you, Kai, for taking us through in some detail there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for the team.
So our next speaker will follow a similar process. GEFCO took the awards very seriously. I think we had, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it was about a dozen submissions, different submissions from GEFCO, all in different categories, all rigorously done. A number were shortlisted. Quite a few weren't, and one won, and GEFCO won for a project called My Car Is There in our Innovation Leader category. So it's a pleasure for me to invite Kamil Mezynski from, I know I said it wrong, you can correct my English pronunciation of the Polish name, from GEFCO to tell us more about the project. Thank you very much, Kamil.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, guys. So, thank you. Thank you, Kai, for excellent presentation and the explanation. I won't be giving that many details, so you will see the difference between the professional guy from the operations and the salesperson. So, the award was for the application called My Car Is There, but I think it's not about the application, at least for us in GEFCO. It's more about the mind shift that we are experiencing currently in our company. We've been talking a lot about the fact that the markets are changing, that everything is moving into the digital. We know that when it comes to sales of the vehicles, at least in the Western Europe, something like 70% of the people are saying that they are ready to buy the car on internet. I did it myself, so I was not visiting the dealer. I knew the car. I typed in the specification, and that's all. We also know that the sales of the new vehicles is something like 15 million cars in Europe, and at the same time, the sales of used cars is 45 millions. And that's how we come into the application. So, and the application, my car is there, and more even the concept. So that was the application created for the second-hand cars movement. This is the application which is dealing with the transportation of the single units. So this is something very different from what GEFCO is typically doing. So normally we are moving the new cars. We are moving them on industrial flows. So we did almost like 2 million cars last year. So that application is completely new in the way GEFCO is approaching the business. We think it's answering the needs of the mobility of the currently changing market. So who could be the customers of that application? Those could be the rental companies, the used cars traders, those could be the auctioneers, or in the end, it's not ready now, but in the end, individuals. So it's very simple. I mean, I don't have the presentation, but if you have a couple of minutes, you can go on the iStore and you can download the app. It's called exactly like that, My Car is There. So it's a very simple application. You type in, so you have the two options. You are asking for the quote, and then you are asking for transportation. So you type in what type of the car you have, where we are supposed to pick it up, and where to deliver. And within the minutes, you are getting the quote. If you are accepting that, then you are adding additional information, VIN number, and all the typical things, and then it goes. Then you can also choose the level of the service. So that's about the customer side, I would say. The big difference is the sourcing, because we used to work with the transportation companies, as I said, industrial flows. The suppliers for that service for us, they are the evacuators or towing companies, and then also the jockeys, individuals. Any of you could be a potential customer or a supplier of our application. And then I believe it's just the beginning, because My Car is There is for the moment used only for the transportation. It's currently used only for the big cities, and mainly we deployed that in the Paris area. But we believe that in the future we'll be able to expand the services. That could be a predictive maintenance, I don't know, repair, change of the tires, and whatever you would need. Refueling, which could be the case. So yeah, that's more or less all about the application. Open for the questions.
Great, thank you. Come join us. Thank you. So, first of all, it's quite interesting. As you mentioned, it's a sort of maybe outside of what might have been considered core GEFCO business, or both on the finished vehicle, and also on the sort of digital side itself, and almost even with almost a B2C aspect to it. So first of all, internally at GEFCO, was this a challenge to, we heard from Kai, right, about sort of saying, well, no people, no money, no IT. So, tell us a little bit about the internal process at GEFCO and sort of launching this, and where it kind of came from as well.
I guess it was a bit less costly, so it was easier, at least from that perspective. I think the biggest challenge was, as I mentioned, we are moving almost 2 million vehicles per year. Huge flow.
Yeah.
You have to change the way you are looking at the business to convince the company to start moving the single units. And I can tell you that we've started with something like 5 vehicles per day in the Paris area. So that was quite difficult to convince the operational people that it matters at the beginning, but luckily they were convinced. And what else as a challenge? I would say I've put a couple of even. It's a different model. Yes, it's starting from the from the customer side, starting from the sourcing or even the finance. Yes, because then you have to be able to receive the payment from the credit card. To receive the payment from the private individual, to be able to pay the private individual, which is driving that car in the end. So that would be it. I mean, go from millions, very well organized, same pickup points, same delivery points, transport plan, and that industrialized way of making the business to moving into something which you cannot predict at all. Yes, because it could be 5 and then the other day could be 50 cars from the different destinations.
And is this, and I don't know if you said this, is any of this being used moved, and has GEFCO invested in any assets to do this as such yet, or working with?
No, it's purely an application.
Yeah.
And the only investment, but it's more time than the assets. It's that I said that we had to build, we had to source in a completely different way, because it's not the car carriers that you will use for the movements. It's the towing trucks and the individuals. So this was, I would say, the only investment that we had to do. These
weren't necessarily companies with whom you had any kind of existing, or were there some
we had some of them, yes, because even if you are responsible for the distribution of the vehicles from the compound to the dealer, then you have some movements between the dealers, but the scale is completely different. And definitely, if you are moving the cars between the dealers, you have a day or two to do that. Yes. When it when the customer is going into the application and they are ordering the transport, they are not going to wait for 2 days. So it has to be immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And they they want to know where and when.
Of course, it's part of the application is track and trace. So it's kind of like with the Uber.
Yeah.
You see where the car is coming, when it will reach you.
And is that using, what is it using to track the car? Is that
a telephone? Yes,
okay.
Telephone,
yeah. So it actually the driver's
exactly.
phone it links to. Okay, interesting. Well, that is so that does lead, and you indicated, of course, there can be some future uses, and you named a few. But I mean that raises immediate questions about whether moving that into aspects of new vehicle distribution, or even, I mean, it struck me that in a car sharing, car service kind of environment, that perhaps there might be some potential applications for something like that.
Definitely, we believe that even currently, yes, there are some Autolead, the car sharing companies which are offering the cars, but then you have to drop the car in the special place. Yes, it's not. I mean, it's all over the Paris, for instance. But then, if you are living outside, then you have to come back. So we could be supportive in this case. You can drive the car wherever you want, and then we'll bring that back. But then I believe that the future is in the additional services that we can build on that application. I don't believe we are going to have the flowers or pizza delivery, but as I said, if you want to change the tires, if you want to send the car for the check or for some repairs, that could be a part of the solution.
We gave this to the innovation leader, and again, that's partly one of the reasons the judges were caught by this, I believe, is because it also points towards new business models, and we talk a lot about that kind of stuff nowadays in our conferences, but we don't necessarily see that many examples yet. So this is quite an interesting potential, I think, because again, GEFCO, at least in the automotive side, would have not really been on a B2C perspective.
No, and I like the poll that was during one of the sessions yesterday. That we've been talking a lot at the conference about the digitalization, the use of the the blockchain in the logistics and all of those new aspects. But then in the end, when we had the poll and the questions, what is the most important? That was by far the transport capacity issue. Yes. So I guess that was also one of the biggest challenges, that the market is growing in Europe. The volumes are growing, and definitely the capacity issue is there. So at the same time, to work on the concept like that.
Yes.
It was, but I'm saying it's. I would add that it's not only one application that we have at GEFCO. It's a mindset that is currently there, because I don't know, you remember there was Stefan yesterday mentioning that GEFCO is teaming up with the Techstar, one of the startup incubators. So we are working on the number of projects with that company. A few weeks ago, GEFCO was part of the Data Crunch Hackathon at the Vivatech. That's the event held in Paris, where the startups and digital companies are meeting. So we've been part of we've been a sponsor, and we've been part of that hackathon exercise. When you gather the young people, you gather the teams of 20 young guys which are coming. You are presenting the topic to them, and then those guys, I can tell you that the room was full of Red Bulls, and those guys are sitting 24 hours non-stop, developing the tool which is meeting the needs of the topic which you presented. And we've got some nice solutions coming from that could be plugged into the my car is there. So we are changing from this transport company into something which is quite into the mobility. Absolutely. So we know that we heard from many of the guys that the future is going to be disruptive. We are having 70% coming from automotive business, a lot of inbound. So if we'll have 3D printing, yes, we don't know what will happen with the business that we are currently operating. So we see that the future is disruptive, but really we are open to face it. Fantastic. I would say.
I've had a few questions in on the app, and in a moment, I have a few myself. But actually, just because we will wrap up in 15 minutes or so, I wanted to just make sure I mentioned to everyone to fill in your evaluation forms if you haven't already. They're on the table. So at the end of the conference, you can fill them in, leave them there, give it to me or any of our team. But I just wanted to give you a little 10, 15-minute warning, so to say. So if you wanted to start filling them in, if you hadn't, as Louis mentioned, these are really essential for us. If it's kind of our data, if you like, that we collect and make decisions based on. But I wanted to ask you, Kamil, about the team that developed the app. And that was in-house GEFCO team. Do you have, is this software programmers that you have employed? Did you work with specialists? How did that?
That was the tool which was developed. It was coming from an idea of an employee, and it was developed locally. Yeah. So of course, when we are now extending that and building up, because as I said, it's 45 million cars on the market sold, and we have no appetite to move all of them, definitely. But there is a potential to move hundreds of thousands of them. So of course, when you have to move that into that direction, then of course we started to hire the programmers which are developing the app.
Fantastic. So again, if there's any questions for either of our panelists, please put up your hand, let us know. But in the meantime, there were a few questions towards the end of Kai when we were speaking, so I didn't get a chance to see them before, so I'll go back to them. One was, have you been challenged by top management as to why Aftersales do not benchmark from serial production inbound control and choose to cooperate with an external company?
Not sure if I fully understand the question. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, so the question was, have you been challenged by top management as to why Aftersales do not benchmark with from serial production inbound? So I guess I guess why if there's been any questioning as to why that couldn't be done somehow, I suppose, with following what production does or with them together, because it was separate.
Okay. Maybe I didn't make myself clear. So the network which Opel has from a supplier into the production facilities or into the after-sales warehouses is the same network. So that network is operated by GEFCO 4PL, so they source the contract, they select the carriers, and they have got two customers. The one customer is the production plants, and the after-sales customers are separate. So we operate in the same network, so we have the benefit of the leverage of the volumes, but as the processes are slightly different, we operate it on a day-to-day base differently. If the question is targeted to my comment that the production has a plan and after-sales has not, then yes, it has been benchmarked by our US colleagues to say that we also could in after-sales send out schedules with an exact time. So I need this part on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Our supply base would not be ready for that, to give after-sales that same priority like they would give it to production, and it would be more difficult to enforce it. I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest, if a plant comes to a standstill, or each and every car needs to be pulled out because there is one part missing, there is no door, or there is no handle, or no switch, and all the cars need to be reworked, that's a totally different incident than 100 customers in after sales have their car somewhere and they don't have the part for it. Well, first of all, whatever we buy does not necessarily have straight away a customer. Sometimes it's just the refill to a warehouse or refill the safety stock. But that impact is a different one. So our materials management colleagues would love to have the leverage at the supplier that we have got the same importance, but we deal in many items in a different life cycle. So the purchasing guys buy the parts from a supplier for the production. We know that we want to produce 500 cars of this sort and we need 500 parts each and every day for the next 3 years. Production will go up and down, but it will stay, let's say, between 300 and 500. The after-sales, and the supplier signs up for that one. He also signs up to keep the after-sales business here for the next 5 years after run-out. The production stops, the 500 parts are gone, and now after-sales comes into play and says, I need 50 parts each month, or maybe less. So the attractiveness of that business is also a different one. So to come in and make it very rigid and very precise would require a lot of pressure. And sometimes, and we have seen it with Volkswagen and Prevent or whatever, the position of the supplier may not be as weak as we all think they are. So specifically in our environment, they are pretty strong. And it's not uncommon that some suppliers say, well, we would love to give the contract back because we have done the business with the production. The after-sales business is not really a business for us. So that's why we are not able to really make it too rigid. Maybe that was the target of the questions. I don't know where it came from.
Well, I mean, we know who asked the question. If there's clarity, I'll ask you after. We can connect it further. There was also a question of how big the network was and how many transport orders we're talking about. Maybe just give a sense of this sort of scale.
Well, if you talk about the total network, Opel has 5,000 delivery points on the outbound side. We are going out of 10 PDCs to it. We have round about 200 full truckloads, including the empty flow, which we have between the warehouses. And if we talk about transport orders, then per year we're gonna go for around about 350,000 transport orders, means pick up at one supplier to bring it into a after-sales facility. So that's around about 300,000 a year.
Okay. And another question on the app here. Also for Kai, what kind of slot booking system have you integrated, and is it also for Flow or something Opel developed?
I mean, we said we were looking for a partner, and actually ForFlow was not the only partner. I mean, they are the front end, yeah, but ForFlow has some own software tools like ForFlow Vista, yeah, but they also partner with iNet. Yeah, and iNet is providing the base for the TMS, and ForFlow together with us were using that off-the-shelf program, yeah, and try to develop it further, yeah, and I don't know if we have overdone it. I mentioned that the other night in a discussion with somebody, yeah, because usually a TMS and if you are dealing with track and trace systems works with a package, yeah, but what we wanted to have is we also wanted to have transparency of what's in the package. Yeah? So if we have a full truckload going from Bochum to Paris, for you as a carrier, you only need to know when it was picked up and when it was delivered, and was there anything happening on the way. We actually wanted to know what's inside, and then following what you asked earlier, we also wanted to know which stillages and which containers are on there and which parts in which quantity. And that drove also ForFlow and iNet to make some adaptations or customizing to their program, so that we also have that level of a part number visible. But now materials management can key in a part number, and they can press the button, and they know where these parts have been transported from the supplier into the warehouse, or if they have been on any inter-warehouse transport. Yeah, so that is there yet. Yeah, and so we are using iNet as a backbone base. Yeah, plus certain customizing. But also we are using a suite of ForFlow systems, like a case management, case handling system, yeah, into that one. Yeah.
Great. Any questions from the? Yeah, question right there for the mic coming to you.
Thanks, John Willems, TNT. Kai, you mentioned the return on the investment you had,
yes,
which is sounds to be very good. Do you also know if this change has improved your service to your dealer network? How it has impacted, for example, your on-time in full delivery of the parts? As you know, it's aftermarket is a balance of cost and service.
Yes.
If you've been able to save cost on one side and improve service on the other side, it's a great result then.
So of course I need to say that yes, it has improved, but I can also
by how much?
I can also convince you that it has, but maybe not in the way you imposed it, John. So if you have got the transparency that the parts are on the way, yeah, then you can try to make a good customer service. So if a part is on back order, yeah, the customer wants it, yeah. In former times, we knew it was ordered. We knew maybe that the supplier sent it, but we didn't know exactly where it was. So it was difficult to tackle that situation. Now we have got the transparency where the part is. We can make a better information and communication towards the dealer, who can then talk to his customer. So that is the transparency which drives definitely better customer satisfaction. If you look at what you mentioned, the on-time shipping, then I can't answer that to you, because before we would have asked you as our outbound service provider in this country, yeah, what is your on-time performance? Yeah, and we would get some feedback and we would get some reports from you. Was it always a full report? No. Yeah. In many cases, we got a percentage rate, and we didn't get any details. So what we have done, and I said that we didn't look too much into outbound, but we did to a certain extent, because we tried to hook our freight management system to it. We also installed something like no POD, no pay. I know that some carriers hate it, but if you can't prove that you have delivered it, you don't get paid for it. Yeah. And we also insist on each and every, and now I use the word delivery or shipment, which means the delivery for that dealer on that day, to also get a proof of service with a timestamp to it, so that we can measure on a shipment level how good the service is. And the numbers have not moved significantly, but I now trust the numbers much more. Yeah? And I think what was also an enabler was that in most of our outbound contracts, which is the one who does the most satisfaction to the dealer, yeah, we have installed penalties. And this is not as a revenue stream. I always have to explain that one. Yeah, but if you hold the partner, and this time the carrier, accountable for it, Yeah, it's fine to look at numbers and reports and get action items and action plans on the table. Yeah, but at the end of the day, if there is money involved, yeah, sort of it has the attraction of not only the operational people at the carrier but also the finance people of the carrier. Yeah, and that helps driving that business. So the installation of fair penalty measured consistently with each and every shipment, I think that drove a lot of customer satisfaction in it. Also the numbers, if you compare it 10 years ago and now, probably do not look that much different.
Okay.
Thank you. Any last questions from the audience? Maybe, Kamil, just maybe a last one from my side. Okay, this is active in Paris region. Is it elsewhere? Is there immediate plans to internationalize this further?
There are plans, yes. It's active in Paris. We are going to do that now in Lyon. And then, of course, with the time we are going to extend that to the other big cities.
And this is not, I mean, this is across different used car brands? Is it?
Yes, it's a movement of the single cars. So it has nothing to do with the. That's the question from the automotive logistics. Yes, are you co-loading? Are you improving the loading factor? No, it's a single. It's a single. Those are single movements. So So, and we are working, of course, with many companies, with the competitors.
Yeah. Okay, well, fantastic. So I think we'll probably kind of move to end there, but I want to thank both of our panelists for sharing more detail on the projects. Congratulations again on the awards. I hope it was interesting for you to learn a bit more about it. I mean, like I said, we had something like 50 companies in the shortlists across many projects. I really encourage you to get to know more of them. If anything, there might be ideas relevant for you, for your business. But again, I think there's a lot to share. But I think both of these examples kind of show a good, interesting range there as well. It was always interesting too because Opel Forflow won in the Better Visibility Award, even though we had another aftermarket category. So it was also interesting to see aftermarket win out over some competitors in production logistics and things. And here we had a project from GEFCO, obviously, again, small scale right now in terms of, because it's almost sort of a startup aspect, new business area, kind of winning out over other more areas in the traditional business, so to say. So I think there's also good examples of different parts of this business that we can look at, learn from, and recognize. So again, thanks to both of you. Congratulations again to all the winners there. And again, just thank you to all of you. When we talked about the theme of this conference around digitalization and excellence, we were very much had in mind the things, and I know it was meant out of context there. We meant IT and people, of course, they're the central ones. So, obviously when Kai couldn't get them in terms of overhead, he got them somehow because you can't innovate without. But the key thing is both, obviously, right? It's not technology on its own. It's not data on its own. Nothing will get you what you want yet. Okay, maybe we'll see what happens with artificial intelligence. But it might just end up taking over the world anyway. So we have no. But seriously, we know that the excellence comes. The excellence comes from the people. The excellence comes from the expertise built up over generations, built up across teams, from collaboration, working together. And it's only that which then gets built in and put into the systems which improve on the other side. So I think that encapsulates what we were sort of trying to talk about across this conference, which is also why we had some focus on leadership, focus on human resources, focus on talent. How do you get those millennials working? It turns out you give them coffee and they'll work 24 hours, right? So that's, yeah.
We don't drink coffee.
Okay. The transition of the industry. So I thought it was a great couple of days. That was thanks to as much to the people in this room as it was to anyone who was on stage, especially everyone getting involved and active in our workshops. Again, just a reminder, I know I'm repeating myself, but there are the evaluation forms on the table. Don't leave here without filling it in, either in paper or there's the digital option. If you go onto the app, there's a button, it's called Survey, in case it wasn't clear. So the button that says Survey is where you can give us your digital feedback. If you prefer it that way. You can obviously do that after the conference as well, but I would just encourage you to do it as soon as possible whilst it's fresh in mind, and we'll make the most of that. So our ambition at Automotive Logistics is not to just drop in and drop out once a year in a place, get you together for a couple of days, get you talking, drink some beer at an evening, and then go back to your day jobs and just forget about it. We are a platform. We're publishing articles every day. We have regular, obviously, our print and digital versions of the publication. We have new kind of partnerships. You'll notice on your table there's some cards about a report, a special report. This is from TI Insight, who we have a partnership with. We're distributing this report, or helping them to distribute this report. If you want more data in the industry, some forecasts, I encourage you to pick up that. And we want to engage with you pretty much 24/7, or let's say theoretically 24/7. Please don't call me at midnight all the time. My partner might get a little bit annoyed about that. But like I said, there's lots of ways we want to collaborate with you. We want to keep interacting with you, both to strengthen the events, to help produce content, meet our editorial team if you hadn't. Most of you would have at some point hopefully met or seen Joanne Perry, the editor. We have our other editorial team here. Marcus Williams sat in the front here. Marcus, put your hand up, say hello. Victoria Johns, our new assistant editor as well. So get to know our team, because we want to get to know you. And like I said, that's how we can continue to build. We have more opportunities for you, obviously, as well, to meet face to face. We have a global series of events. I won't name them all right now, but we have events in the US, Mexico, in China, in Brazil. Perhaps particularly interesting for this audience will be the launch of our Automotive Logistics Central and Eastern Europe conference, which will be, is it November 13th, 14th, Louis? I believe it's November 13th, 14th in Budapest later this year. I think that's going to be a really exciting event, given all the developments. It's not that it's new, what's happening there. Obviously, production has been growing in Central Eastern Europe for however long the Berlin Wall has been down, but nonetheless, a lot of stuff is happening, and I think what our focus there is to say the discussion has moved on. If we were talking about this 10 years ago, we probably would have been focused on the cost, lower labor costs, and building cheaper models for exports, and of course there's competitive aspects to it, but I mean, if you look at the premium products that are being built there, the premium brands that are there, the technology, the level of technology which is going into production and into the supply chain in the region. This is a premium region, and it needs a premium supply chain with the best world-class logistics existing, and that's what we want to focus on at that event. So I think with that, that's all really from our side. Thanks again to our sponsors once again with whom this event is truly made possible. Thank you to everyone who participated on stage in workshops, who asked a question, who used the app, who voted, and just who came and participated. And hopefully you can go back and share more of this information in the offices and feedback as often to us as possible. So thanks to everyone. Well done again, and we will see you next time. Thank you.